Welcome to Cyber Threat Intel, your go-to source for the latest updates, news, and insights on cyber threats. Our goal is to arm you with the knowledge to protect yourself in the digital age, whether you're a cybersecurity professional or just curious about the threats lurking in the digital shadows. Make sure to subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast listening platform to join us on the front lines of cybersecurity, because in the world of cyber threats, knowledge is power. Welcome. This is Cyber Threat Intel. I'm your host, John Good. It is Tuesday, May 28th, 2024, and this is episode 41. If you're new to the show, glad to have you here. If you're returning from a previous episode or some other content, glad to see you back. I know we didn't have an episode yesterday if you saw the message, because here in the United States, it was a holiday. It was Memorial Day. And so with that, we did not have an episode, but we're back today. And again, it's Tuesday and we're ready to kick things off for the week. So with that being said, if you need to grab a snack or a drink or something to get you through the show, make sure you go ahead and do that before you continue. But for everybody else, let's flip over to my screen and get into the content. All right, so first article here, courtroom recording software compromised with backdoor installer. Popular brand of recording software used widely in courtrooms, jails, and prisons has been compromised by hackers, allowing them to gain full control of a system through a backdoor implanted in an update to the tool. No! Justice AV Solutions, JAVS, is used to record events like lectures, court hearings, and council meetings, with more than 10,000 installations of their technologies worldwide. It can be downloaded through the vendor's website and shipped as a Windows-based installer package. So if you don't know anything about courtrooms and taking minutes and information like that, especially in courtrooms, what happens is everything that is said or done is all recorded for the official record. That way there is this record that's maintained of that information. So certainly we're thinking about an integrity issue here, because if this software is compromised and somebody could alter whatever is stored in that software or the text, the recordings, because they're not recording it with a microphone, right? In that sense, they are actually typing it up. And so we need that information to be accurate. We need it to have integrity, not be altered, because that can certainly bring into question what was then actually said in the courtroom if somebody wants to appeal their court case or appeal a ruling, or all of those things can be significant issues for that. Everything in courtrooms is very strict, and it has to be right. It cannot be questioned, because everything that happens because of those courtrooms, is important, and it has to withstand that in order to be actually carried out as far as whatever the rulings are. It says, but this week the company said it identified a security issue with the version of its JAVS viewer software. Though ongoing monitoring and collaboration with cyber authorities, we identified attempts to replace our viewer 8.3.7 software with a compromised file, the company said in a statement on Thursday. Malicious file, which contained malware, did not originate from JAVS or any third party associated with JAVS, and the company urged users to verify that the company has digitally signed any software that they install. That's another thing that we see sometimes with malware, is these malicious threat actors, they will sign software maybe, or not sign it too. We've seen that, but they can sign it, and they'll sign it as somebody else. So essentially, if you look to just make sure it has a signature or it's signed software, legitimate software, and you don't look at who signed it, then you might just keep using it and not really, not think twice about it. But you can sign software pretty easily as whatever entity, or, legitimate or not. So it says malware transmits data about the host system to a command and control C2 server belonging to the threat actors. Rapid7 tracked the issue as CVE 2024-4978 and said it worked with the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, on coordinating disclosure of the problem. Rapid7 said the malicious versions of the software were signed by Vanguard Tech Limited, which is allegedly based in London. Always allegedly, because it could be something else. Could be some front company or something along those lines signing it. But just in general, again, especially because this deals with courtroom proceedings or courtroom software, things that are and really important for the courtroom proceedings, there's an extra level of scrutiny and importance to make sure that that data is accurate, that that whole process is not tampered with. Because again, that's how cases get thrown out all the time, or rulings get thrown out, because there is some kind of evidence that doesn't necessarily add up, or something in the proceedings wasn't accurate, and then there's a mistrial, or all of those things. So it is very, very important, especially with that software, that it is working appropriately, and it is not compromised software that's going to lead to something like a mistrial because the evidence or the record or whatever was altered, and we can't verify that that is in fact what happened. Next article here: Ascension slowly restoring networks as nurses, doctors cite real-world dangers of attack. Catholic Hospital Network Ascension said it expects to make progress in recovering from a ransomware attack by the end of the Memorial Day weekend. So we just wrapped up the Memorial Day weekend here in the United States. That was yesterday's holiday. The nonprofits, more than 140 hospitals and senior care centers have struggled to distribute medication, handle test results, and intake emergency cases for more than 2 weeks following a devastating cyber attack by the Blockbuster ransomware group. So we actually talked about this event on this show. So if you missed that, go back and watch it. But that's why it's important to make sure you stay current with what we're talking about, because we do touch on all these current events. There's a quote in here. It says, many of our vendors and partners have also started the process of reconnecting to our network and resuming services with Ascension, which should help to accelerate our overall recovery, the spokesperson said. Until that time, please know that our hospital and facilities remain open and are providing care. So that was one big thing with this particular incident or situation, is that Ascension said out of precaution that their vendors should disconnect from the connection to their network just to make sure, until they essentially find out exactly what happened and can kind of take those recovery steps from there. So that's part of containment. If you're not familiar with the incident response process, you obviously have to prepare beforehand. That's kind of a standard thing. And then you identify that there's an incident. So they identify there's some kind of incident. You contain that. So you want to make sure that it's not going to spread throughout the rest of your network or through those other connections. Good supply chain security, third-party risk. So good on them. Then you start eradicating it. So you start removing it. Then you're going to do recovery. You're going to bring everything back and get it back to its normal function and normal state. And then you document all that along with the lessons learned, because you want to keep improving. That is the standard incident response process that everybody follows if they're following an accurate process and something that they should be following. But that's a standard practice that we do in incident response and in cybersecurity, kind of how the evolution of these situations take place. It says Ascension continues to work with Mandiant and other cybersecurity experts in the private sector and government to build and restore systems. So again, they're in that recovery phase or that restoration part of the incident response process. And after all that, they're going to go back and they're going to document all those lessons learned, figure out where things went wrong, what they can do better, whether that's just as far as the response or just the overall security program. How did they get in? Was that a function of our process? Can we fix whatever that process was and make it better? This is also important too. It says in the article here, one nurse at a Michigan hospital called the situation so dangerous and told the Detroit Free Press that they have to use fax machines to order prescriptions, lab work, and imaging. So it is really hindering those core functionalities that they need to do. It also says There's another quote: "We are waiting 4 hours for head CT scan results on somebody having a stroke or a brain bleed." Now, this is one of the really bad situations that happens with hospitals, and why things are so sensitive around hospitals and patching cycles and updating software and updating devices, how you set up the security, because you have all these really sensitive systems that you have to make sure work. If somebody's life is on the line and they can't do, for instance, the CT scan or some other procedure, some other situation, right, and some other technology, they can't do that because the systems are down or whatever the case is, that's a serious liability. It's not just, well, the system is down, so we're not going to be able to take a few payments for some basic system. This is literally somebody's life on the line because you can't do a certain procedure that you would normally be able to do and need to do. So it's a difference in that world for sure. It says, without access to electronic record systems, nurses have also struggled to know what blood tests or medications correspond to which patients. Again, another core thing. Healthcare workers have had to use text threads and Google Docs to track medications, and patients are being asked to bring in their own documentation to help. So now we start to have HIPAA issues. Is that a HIPAA compliant method that these records are being exchanged through? Certainly when somebody's life is on the line, it's one of those things. It's like, get it done. Make sure this person is not going to have a catastrophic situation, or, worse, pass away or something because you can't provide the health care or the treatment that they need. But then after the fact too, it's like, well, we're not using HIPAA compliant methods to exchange that information. And so that becomes a big issue too. But again, human safety, human life, this is like a CISSP question. What is the most important thing when the building is on fire? Human safety. Get people out. Make sure people are taken care of. Address that first and then worry about some of the other stuff, but you should have prepared for the other stuff beforehand. All right, next article here. Hackers phish finance orgs using Trojanized Minesweeper clone. No! Hackers are utilizing code from a Python clone of Microsoft's vulnerable Minesweeper game to hide malicious scripts in attacks on European and US financial organizations. I haven't played Minesweeper in a long time. I guess I didn't even know that was still a thing. Ukraine's CCERT NBU and CERT UA attribute the attacks to a threat actor tracked as UAC0188, who is using the legitimate code to hide Python scripts that download and install the SuperOps RMM. If you don't know what SuperOps RMM is, it's a legitimate remote management software that gives remote actors direct access to the compromised systems. So essentially, it's a remote management software like VNC Viewer, those kinds of things. It says, it gives the attack process here. So summarize it here a little bit. It says the attack starts with email sent from support at patient-docs-mail.com, personating medical center, gives a subject personal web archive of medical documents. So that's how it's kicking off, via email. Recipient is prompted to download a 33 megabyte .scr file from the provided Dropbox link. So they're sending you out to download a certain file. That file contains Python code of the Minesweeper game along with malicious Python code that then downloads additional malicious scripts from a notepad.com. Including the Minesweeper code with the executable serves as a cover for the 28 megabyte base64 encoded string containing malicious code that attempts to make it appear benign to security software. So it's trying to obfuscate what it's actually trying to do, what it is. Pretty standard. Additionally, Minesweeper code contains a function called createLicenseVer, which is repurposed to decode and execute the hidden malicious code. So it is kind of rebuilt in that sense. So the legitimate software components are masking and facilitating the cyber attack. Base64 code is decoded then to disassemble a zip file that contains an MSI installer, which is that standard installer for Windows. For SuperOps RMM, which we already talked about, which is extracted and executed using a static password. So essentially that chain is then what's going to give access to the attacker. So like we've talked about before, a lot of this malware is multi-stage things, attack chains. It's not one piece of software, one piece of malware that contains everything. It is multiple steps in the process. Next article here, new ATM malware family emerged in the threat landscape. Threat actors advertising new ATM malware family that claims to be able to compromise 99% of devices in Europe. Threat actors offering the malware for $30,000. That's a discount, it seems like, right? He claims that the EU ATM malware is designed from scratch and that can also target approximately 60% of the ATMs worldwide. So not only just in Europe, but also worldwide. That's a serious thing with ATMs because obviously that's cash and that can affect the banks, that can affect the economy if you could do it at massive scale. The ATM malware can target machines manufactured by multiple leading vendors. They give a whole bunch of different vendors here. So Diebold, Nixdorf, Hyosung, Oki, Bank of America, NCR, GRG, and Hitachi. So again, when we're dealing with money, when we're talking about the economy, banking, financial, those things can all have a massive impact if vulnerabilities can be exploited at scale. Think about this. What if you had, 10,000 ATM machines? I don't know how many ATM machines there are in the world, but let's just say there was 10,000 was a substantial part of that. And then you're able to exploit that and just rip all the cash out of those systems. That can have a dramatic effect. It's not just one ATM, it's at scale. When we're doing something like this, when there's that kind of vulnerability and you can do it at scale, that is a significant concern because again, out of one ATM machine, I don't know how much cash ATM machines carry on hand, but it's not $1 million. There's no way you could stack $1 million in an ATM machine. Of course. But those ATM machines have to have enough cash on hand to serve whoever is going to deal with that ATM machine or go to that ATM machine. So it's going to be a decent amount of cash that's stored in there. 10,000, it's probably more than $10,000, I think. I don't even know. But again, just at scale, if you can do that to a whole bunch of different ATM machines or keep hitting them and just bounce from one to another, eventually that's going to cause issues, especially if the vendor is not receptive to that and they don't fix the vulnerability that exists. So always an interesting thing dealing with the financial institution because we have so much that is backed or connected to that as far as our cash that we have. And also it's like, well, you get legitimate cash out. There's no way with cash to invalidate those bills. At least not that I know of. I've taken cash payments before when I worked in like retail and things. So, and I obviously have paid with cash before to things. So there's no like check of the dollar bills. So, maybe that's one vote for cashless payment systems. But yeah, certainly interesting. Next article, newly discovered ransomware uses BitLocker to encrypt victim data. Here's BitLocker again, or BitLocker in general, which is great. But a previously unknown piece of ransomware dubbed ShrinkLocker encrypts victims' data using BitLocker feature built into the Windows operating system. If you don't know what BitLocker is a full volume encryptor that debuted in 2007. with the release of Windows Vista. So it's in Windows. Users employ it to encrypt entire hard drives to prevent people from reading or modifying data in the event they get physical access to the disk. So, been using this in enterprises for a while. It's a good idea for you to use it for sure. You can use it on your a lot of personal systems too. So if you go to use that with things like Windows 11, they're starting to require that you have TPM chips so that you can encrypt your hard drive. That's kind of the way the world is going. We're going towards full disk encryption instead of in the past where it wasn't necessarily required, or you didn't need a TPM chip to run Windows Vista or Windows 10 or Windows XP. If you're still using that, which I hope you're not still using Windows XP, that would be a bad idea.
Yes.
So don't use Windows XP. Says researchers named the new ransomware Shrink Locker both for its use of BitLocker and because it shrinks the size of each non-boot partition by 100 megabytes and splits the newly unallocated space into new primary partitions of the same size. Shrink Locker isn't the first malware to leverage BitLocker. In 2022, Microsoft reported that ransomware attackers with a nexus to Iran also used the tool to encrypt files. That same year, the Russian agricultural business Miratorg was attacked by ransomware that used BitLocker to encrypt files residing in the system storage of infected files. So this makes me think of the idea of living off the land. This is kind of this new idea with, well, new-ish idea with attackers. You know, really kind of the emergence of security software and how good that stuff has become, that it is more advantageous and less detectable if an attacker can use what is on the land or already on the system. So there are all kinds of articles and things out there about living off the land and using built-in binaries and all those kinds of things. But that's the idea. If you can use something that is already on the system, not have to reach out and grab malware from somewhere else that probably already has a detection signature, then you are much less likely to be detected. That's just how it is. So it is definitely interesting to use BitLocker to do ransomware kind of attacks or other use any kind of built-in binary or just living off the land of what comes with an operating system. Always interesting. It says eventually, ShrinkLocker disables protections designed to secure the BitLocker encryption key and goes on to delete them. It also says the reasons for deleting the default protectors is to disable the key recovery features by the device owner. So if you're not familiar with BitLocker and how that kind of works, you've never used it on a Windows 11 system or something like that, there are recovery features that are built into it so that you could recover the system. So if you forgot the key and you want to recover it, you can use the recovery protection mechanisms. But this Shrink Locker is trying to literally go after that and remove that as an option so they literally have full control of your system. It's like any good ransomware. They want to take complete control of your system so that you have no choice but to either rebuild, lose everything, or pay up, and then they get paid. They may give you the decryption key. So pretty standard kind of attack vector as far as that, or strategy, because they're just trying to take over the whole system. They want control. They want to get paid, and then they may give you the decryption key. So yeah, always interesting. But with that being said, that is the last article for today's episode. Again, this is Cyber Threat Intel. I'm your host, John Good. Welcome back from the long weekend. But this is Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. It's Tuesday, and it's episode 41 for Cyber Threat Intel. Make sure to check out cyberthreatintel.com if you want to see all the articles that we covered and more. But with that being said, Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. See you later. Are you tired of overpaying for cybersecurity training? Are you interested in training from industry professionals? Are you looking for cybersecurity career services? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then cybertrainingpro.com is the perfect platform for you. At Cyber Training Pro, we're a one-stop shop for all your cybersecurity needs. We can train you for industry certifications or just improve your overall knowledge and skills in a certain area. Unlike other platforms, we don't stop there. We can also coach you throughout your career, practice your interview skills, or create a high-performing resume with our career services. CybertrainingPro.com isn't just another training platform. Students get exclusive access to our private community where we go beyond training courses to provide additional content, tips and tricks, and engagement with both other students and staff. Look, by the year 2025, there could be as many as 3.5 million job openings in cybersecurity. With so much opportunity, why not maximize your career potential with a platform that cares about your success? Come join us at cybertrainingpro.com and start building your future today.